Okay, ready? Go.
Yeah. Whew.
Yep.
Nice. What was yours?
Johnny Walker Swing. I'm trying to finish this thing.
Cool. This was the very last of the what is it?
The new thing.
No. It's Knob Creek bourbon, which I really like. I'm really sad that I'm out of it. I like it better than the New Deal. Yeah.
It's a good, simple.
Yeah, it's just good.
One. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right. Let's do it.
Okay.
So welcome to our show. This is kind of just episode 0, getting to know us. We just want to talk about like who we are and why we think, doing this podcast makes sense. I figure we'll start by introducing each other because that's more fun. So you're Dan, you're my younger brother. You are an artist. You have been for, I don't know, how long have you been doing art?
Like 7, 8 years.
Okay. And then you currently work for Falcon's Treehouse, which is, I want to call it a design firm, but I feel like that isn't the right.
It is a design firm. Yeah, it's a themed entertainment design company. So things that are very themed, mostly theme parks, but not just theme parks. There's museums and even hotels and things like that.
So it's mostly big, like physical installations of,
yes,
like theme park scale stuff.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be. It could be smaller things. And enormous things, small things. Yeah.
Okay. And you're a concept artist, right?
Yes, concept artist, illustrator. Yeah.
Cool. Can you talk at all about like what you've done or some of the I can think of in particular like a large yellow rectangle. Like there's been some cool clients that you've done work for, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay. So well, there's really probably 3 things that I've worked on that I can talk about. Some stuff for National Geographic. It's actually been a couple things. There's a Jane Goodall exhibit, something called Ocean Encounter in Times Square.
Oh, cool.
And one other thing for National Geographic. And then there was something for Busch Gardens, a ride for Busch Gardens in Williamsburg, Virginia, and Halo Outpost Discovery, which is this big event for Halo fans, the game.
So is your art in the game or is it part of some like big exhibit thing?
Eventually adapted into the game, but it was made for this big event. We did like this big media dome thing experience as part of the event.
Because you told me this like for the first time last week or something, and I think it's super cool, and I want to play Halo to see if you have art in Halo. That just seems really cool.
Yeah, I think they did eventually adopt some of the designs into the game, but it was originally just made as like this one-off. It's like the history of Halo, and they go through.
I don't know. That sounds really cool.
You had to be there, I guess.
No, I don't know. It sounds cool.
No, it is really cool. But cool. Yeah, those are like the 3 main things that have been released that I can talk about. All the things that I'm working on now, I can't talk about. But yeah.
So basically, like you have a super cool job. You work for some really big and interesting clients, but you started out. I mean, you're self-taught. Like you pretty much started from 0. I mean, I know that you used to do a lot of art in high school and stuff, like just for fun.
But a little art, yeah.
Oh, I mean, you were always painting here and there and stuff, but
yeah. But I don't like to count it, but yes, I guess technically I was, but yeah.
Well, I
didn't really get serious about it until about 7 years ago.
Well, that's what I mean. Like you had done art off and on and just kind of casually, but then there was some point, like some event that happened with you where you just like disappeared and nobody saw you for a couple years, and then you just kind of came out and were like, oh, I'm an artist now and I'm gonna get a job, and you did, and like that was that.
Pretty much, yep.
Yeah. So
yeah,
so you're a self-taught, like self-made artist, I guess. Cool.
Yeah, I've been working at my job, I think almost 4 years now.
Oh wow. Okay. Didn't realize it was that long. Yeah. Cool.
All right, so let's talk about you.
Okay.
Michael New.
Yeah.
Successful YouTube creator.
Well, okay.
What do you say about
that one has a big asterisk because for anybody wandering in from my previous YouTube adventures, I haven't been active on my YouTube channel for a couple of years. But we did an episode. We're actually recording this like after having recorded a couple episodes of the show. But we did an episode on why that happened. Like I had this YouTube channel. It was successful. It was doing super well. I mean, relative to like my standards. And then I just kind of stopped uploading. So we have an hour plus talk about why that happened and like what the situation is there.
Right. But for the last, I think we found it was the last 11 years you've had this YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's been a major part of my life for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So besides the YouTube, you have done quite a few things. I think probably your biggest, basically your full-time job. Well, you're a freelancer, but what you do full-time is software engineering, right?
Yeah.
Can you?
Yeah, I mean, so so I do mostly like iOS development. I do some Android development too. Was freelance for a long time. I've done, I've done lots of little projects. But some of the ones that people might know is I did an app for Total Wine and More, which I don't know if they still use it, but it was like an app like for in-store. So they'd have these iPads mounted like around the store, and you'd go up to them and like, thumb through the wines, and it was supposed to like pair different meats and wines and stuff. I don't know. I mean, I just coded it. I don't know what you pair with what. So that was one that people might know. I worked on an app for CrossFit. It's like their like journal app, I think they call it. But it just has a bunch of articles and stuff from CrossFit. So that was a cool job. I worked with them for a while.
We also made a game.
Yeah, yep. We made a game. You did the art. I did the coding. It actually was pretty cool. It's dead. Facebook killed it because that's what Facebook does. They bought up our server and swore up and down that they were gonna, take care of it and make sure everybody's happy. And then sure enough, a year later, they killed it.
Maybe someday we can bring it back.
I want to. It's just a lot of work, but no, it was cool.
Yeah. All right. Besides software engineering, you do a couple other cool things. You are a competitive StarCraft player.
Well,
right?
Yeah. Well, I'm an enthusiastic amateur. I don't know.
I feel like you're really good.
But no, like it depends on how you define good. I'm in the top couple percentage of players, right? Like I'm at the top tier in the Master League, or at least I was. I haven't played in like a month, but there are people who play it professionally, and they make a lot of money and they travel around the world and compete in tournaments, and it's their job. Like they are full-time StarCraft players. I am not anything close to that level. I'm not really even good enough to like run into them on the ladder. I'm underneath that, but I do compete in like amateur leagues and stuff like that, which is fun.
Yeah. Oh, well, one big thing I didn't mention, you are self-taught in software engineering, right?
Yes.
Completely just taught yourself. Yeah.
That's one of the major things that we have in common, which is even though like we went super different directions, we are both self-taught in our career fields. So yeah, I was self-taught.
I imagine StarCraft, you also taught yourself.
Well, you can't really go to school for that. I actually did get coaching once.
Did you?
Yeah.
From who?
Neuro is his name. He's like a streamer.
He sounds really good.
He's super cool. He's a really good teacher. He's like just really good at explaining things. I did a couple lessons with him a few years ago, and it was helpful. It was fun.
Okay. All right. So besides StarCraft and software engineering, also a couple years ago, you got into powerlifting. Right?
Yeah. I had every intention of competing in powerlifting in 2020, but 2020 turned out to be hot garbage. So no competing then, but I am hoping to compete next year. I'm not like, my numbers are fine. Like I'm proud of them, but it's, if I could, I like, I just want to be clear. I think I could do okay at like a regional meet, you know, citywide type of thing, but you know, I'm nothing even close to like, you know, a state competitive level or anything beyond that. So it's a same thing. It's a fun hobby for me that I like to pursue.
Yeah, and I feel like we could not list all the things that you've done or been interested in because there's a lot of them. But
oh, actually, hold on. One thing. I want to clarify this because this comes up every time I tell anybody that I'm into powerlifting. Powerlifting is not bodybuilding. Those are not the same thing at all. Bodybuilding is where you lift weights to look like you're big. Powerlifting is where you compete with 3 barbell lifts, bench press, deadlift, and squat, and you try to be as strong as you can when you do, you know, a single repetition of the squat, the bench press, and the deadlift. So you're trying to develop a lot of strength on those barbell lifts for a single repetition. So it's a strength sport, but I'm not a bodybuilder. I don't look like a bodybuilder. People give me kind of a funny look and they're like, "You're a bodybuilder?" Like, no, not that. Something else.
All right, I'm glad we cleared that up.
Yeah.
Okay, so well, I guess the other big thing would be music.
Right, which is one of the other things that we actually do have in common. We both were pretty into music for quite a while.
Yeah.
And still are to some degree, but it's not like not our main pursuit.
Yeah, but we both heavily pursued music for many years when we were younger.
Yeah. I actually did my bachelor's degree in music. So I am schooled in music, but the weird part of that is that I was not, you know, I was a self-taught electric guitar player who goofed around in my bedroom. And then I was going to school for engineering and decided that it sucked and hated it. And I just decided that I wanted to audition for the music program. So I had a long period of, I want to say around 8 months or so, 8 or 10 months of just like locking myself in my room and practicing classical guitar, which I didn't even know what that was up until the point where I'd like decided I want to audition for music. Let's go figure out what I even have to do for that. Oh, classical guitar, figure out what that is and like learn how to play it. Like I'd spent 8 months trying to learn that. So that was a big part of my, I don't know, growing up or like college experience was that period of time of trying to like learn how to do that and then auditioning and doing 4 years of music school.
For me, music was trying to teach myself and then trying to write music. And I think I kind of wanted to be like a songwriter type thing.
I mean, you were pretty okay.
Yeah. And then I don't know. It's like I was missing some sort of ingredient of like being able to learn. I don't know. I just kind of got trapped into just writing music and not learning more about it. I don't know. Anyway, eventually it led to me I was like, all right, I'll just forget about that and start.
Well, I mean,
art.
What do you think made the difference between like you were into music, but then you kind of pivoted and decided to get into art, which to me, they both seem like not the easiest thing to be successful at, right? Like why, you know, visual art over music?
Well, for me, I think music is complicated, but it was like my inability to see how to progress with it. I just kept writing music, and I was just like too stubborn to just keep learning things. And I don't know, I couldn't find a good routine. I don't know, I just didn't know how to look at it objectively and figure out a goal and meet it. So I ended up just getting really frustrated with it. And I was teaching guitar at the time,
which
maybe
we both
teaching music.
Yeah, maybe we have more in common than we thought. But yeah, we were both taught music for a while.
Yeah. So I don't know. I wasn't making much money with it. It just wasn't going anywhere. And I had always, you know, kind of been interested in art. And then I don't know. One day I was like, you know what? I'm going to see if I can learn more about art. And then it just kind of sent me down this.
It's funny because I feel like software, I mean, it was hard and I spent a lot of effort like trying to learn how to do that. But still, I was pretty sure I'd get a job if I got to the point where I could be competent in it. You know, art to me is much less of a sure thing. I mean, there's a lot of
Well, that
people,
was yes,
right?
but that was one of the things that I learned. Like, I was like, okay, I want to pursue art a little bit, or I want to see what I can learn with art. I don't
Right.
know. It just seemed really fun and exciting because it was new. So I bought a book off Amazon, and in the book, it talks about how there's all these careers in art, and there's all these different ways to actually learn how to be an artist. I don't know. It just seemed really doable. Um,
That's fair.
Hard to do, but
Yeah.
actually doable, and you could get a career in art.
Mm,
So I just decided, oh, I'll just do that. I'm not
cool.
doing anything else, so
I mean,
might as well just
you were right. It worked. So
yeah.
good call.
So it wasn't. It's not quite like the starving artist thing. Like there are actual jobs you can get
Right.
as an artist.
But I mean, again, like you put in a lot of time. You weren't just
Yeah.
a high school kid who did some cool paintings and like got somebody to hire you. You put in work, a lot of it.
Yes, I did, and that was something that I couldn't do with music. I didn't know how to. With art, there was more of I don't know, but
Yeah.
there was more information on how to learn. But
I feel like that's something maybe we could talk about for a future episode.
yeah,
Just why
but
certain things feel like something you can execute on, others aren't.
yeah, but basically, art was I don't know. I decided I wanted to do art, taught myself art, and then I got a job in art.
Cool.
I think that's the important part.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about why we wanted to do this podcast at all. I mean, we've actually recorded a couple episodes, so we have a little bit of a sense for what kind of things we want to talk about.
Okay, well, here's why I wanted to do this. We've always talked about the things we're interested in. It used to be music, and they're the same thing. But then, even as you go and learn software engineering stuff, and I learn art, we're still talking. We're still having those same conversations of like
Yeah.
how can we do things better? What's interesting to us? Have you ever thought about doing this way? Or,
Right.
we've always had these conversations that can last hours and hours.
Yeah.
But I always get something out of them, and I think you do too. And they're always enjoyable to me, at least.
Yeah, same. I mean, yeah, I found it really interesting that when we were both into music, obviously we would talk about that a lot, but we went in really different directions. I mean, I'm a engineer and you're a, painter or illustrator artist. But like those same conversations still continue to happen, like where we're talking about how you focus on something for a long period of time, or how you deal with the distractions and time management, like obsession, and how that plays a role in your job and what you do and everything. Like all that stuff still seems to be common things that we both feel that and can relate with those things. And maybe in some ways like have different perspectives on it, but still like some of the same issues come up, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. So for me, a couple years ago, I guess more than a couple years ago, many years ago, you moved to Portland, which I live in Florida. So you moved away. How long ago was that?
5 or 6 years, I think.
Okay, 5 or 6 years ago, you move away, and we kind of don't keep in touch and don't talk that much. But recently, we were on a road trip for 4 or 5 hours, and we just talked the entire time.
Yeah.
And it was good. I got a lot out of it. And so like a couple weeks after that, I was mowing the lawn, and I was like, what if we just did that like every week? Like, what if we just talked about the things that we enjoy talking about every week? What would happen if we just recorded it? And then it just kind of turned into the idea of this. So we'll see what happens. But
well, it's been cool because, like we said, we've done a few episodes so far, and part of it has been us talking about something. Like we did a big episode on obsession, which was really, I think, interesting. At least it was interesting for me. But what's cool is that not only have we had to talk about it from our different perspectives, but also it has made me have to think about it a lot. And I've known that obsession and my tendency towards obsessiveness has been a big part of like the learning experience, about the hobbies that I have, the things that I've done, but I never really thought about it in more concrete terms until we're like, hey, let's do an episode on this and like actually hash it out. And that's been kind of illuminating. I mean, just how that has played a massive role in me and my life, and like has determined my success or failure in certain things is not something I'd really thought about to that point.
So topics like that, we haven't done this for very long at all.
Sure.
But we choose a topic and then we kind of just think about it for the week. And then I think this will be sort of a platform where we can test out and experiment with just thoughts we've been having. See if anything sticks or can help us.
I mean, it's already
the things that we're interested in.
It's already brought up some pretty interesting things just for me personally. Like, we're planning one on perfectionism, which is also a major piece of my life and like my experiences. But again, I've kind of thought of myself as a perfectionist, but never really thought about what that means or what the consequences of that are or why until now. So that to me is kind of a fascinating thing to do.
Yeah. So I hope this will be a way to kind of keep us in check and dig deeper into the topics that we already are interested in, but haven't had an excuse to research for a significant amount of time before.
Yeah. And for me, when I was younger and more naive and more, eager and everything, I spent a lot of time reading books or podcasts or whatever on productivity and time management and, the kind of thing that you get into as like a young college student or just anybody starting out. And I wound up feeling really frustrated with a lot of that because like time management is great. And I still use different time management techniques, but getting all excited about time management is not always the problem. Like for me, I had some very deep emotional problems around what I worked on and what I was pursuing. And like I said, those things like perfectionism and obsessiveness and some pretty major things going on. And time management, like, set a timer and take a break when it's done. Like that's fine, but that does not address some of those much deeper, much bigger issues that can really affect you long term. Things like burnout and motivation and how that works. Like all those are some pretty deep issues that like really take some self-reflection. So that's kind of the type of thing that I'm excited to kind of dig into.
Well, there's things that I see you utilizing, like, I don't know, memorization techniques or time management things. And I'm jealous that I don't understand what you are doing. So I just want to be able, I want to set up some kind of time where I can grill you about those.
Yeah. And maybe talk about, I've probably tried a million different things and maybe 4 of them have stuck. Like these 4 things are things that I still do and like to do. And I'd kind of like to hear your list of 4 things too, or whatever it is that you do with your time, like you think actually matters.
Yeah.
So
I waste a lot of time.
Yeah, we just, we're not, this is not a solved problem for either of us, but we have found some success in certain things that we've pursued. And that's something. Like we've figured out at least a few things. So
one interesting thing I think about us is that I don't know if these are the perfect terms for it, but I think you are extremely left-brained and I'm extremely right-brained, even though maybe that's kind of a myth. But
I think it mostly is a myth, but it is useful in describing something. Like, yes, we are.
You are extremely analytical and like mathematically minded.
I don't like being put in that box, but you're not wrong. Like
in comparison to me, you are though.
I know that you're kind of right, but I don't know. Maybe I just don't want to be labeled too much, but you're not wrong. And we certainly have very different approaches to a lot of things. Like even music, we took very, very different approaches to.
So I don't know how to perfectly explain that, but we are very different in the way we approach things, and yet there's a lot of common ground that we find.
We can call it left brain, right brain if we just acknowledge
Okay.
that that's stupid and not how it works. But
Okay.
yeah, there's a difference with how we think.
I knew you would have a problem with that, but I decided to say it.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm predictable.
Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's kind of what we're after. Any other thoughts or things to add to that?
Well, I'm also hoping to get, feedback on from anyone else, because we've only ever really talked to each other about these things. I'm interested in other people's thoughts on the same subjects.
Yeah, definitely.
So that would be the reason for us to make our conversations public. Is, I don't know. I'm curious to see what other people think.
Yeah, I've always felt that there's things that we don't talk about, not because they're taboo, but because they're just like kind of weird and hard to understand and hard to explain. So we just don't talk about them. Like if you give an assignment to a classroom full of students, say, hey, memorize, the state capitals of the 50 US states. Some of them will be able to do it really fast, and some of them will struggle with it and never actually accomplish it, even if they spend a lot of time on it. And for some strange reason, we don't really ask why. We just kind of say, well, some are smart, some are dumb, whatever. And that's that. But really, like, people's mental approach, the emotional relationship they have with schoolwork and school, and like there's a million factors that go into why some people can do that quickly and some can't. The ways the techniques for memorization is something I'm kind of passionate about, because I think it's criminal or just negligent that like we don't even teach people how to memorize stuff, because if you learn how, it's actually really easy. But the way you do it is kind of weird, so we just don't like to talk about it. Anyway, people have very different experiences when it comes to learning or doing good work, and there's a lot of reasons behind it, and we don't usually talk about them. We just kind of leave it up to like the individual, like, oh, well, you didn't accomplish what you were supposed to, so you've failed, and that's that. And we never really ask deeper questions about why. And I think it's different for everybody. Certainly for me and you, but also anyone else out there. Like, there's vastly different experiences, and that's really, really important stuff. It can change the trajectory of your life, but we don't talk about it. And I want to talk about that stuff.
I do too.
Cool. I'm excited.
All right, I got nothing else.
Yeah, I think that's it. So I'm excited to do some shows, and I'm excited to hear like what people think and what their experiences are.
Yeah. So let us know what you think.
Yeah.
All right.